So that's Silksong, huh? Game's got hands, little tiny bug hands that hold a little tiny nail. But they also have hands in that they beat the ever-living poopy out of everyone who is playing it right now. And there has been some discourse about Silksong. I personally played it, got through Act 1, and then this happened. If it says Act 2, I'm gonna fucking scream. Don't do it. So why was I reacting so negatively to seeing I was about to get a lot more game? Well, it's because I don't really like Silksong all that much. In fact, I don't like playing Silksong. And I want to talk about it because I have very conflicted feelings about Silksong and the discourse surrounding Silksong that has divided the internet into two camps. And I think both camps are being a little unfair to each other. So the two camps are the game is too hard and the game isn't that hard, get good. And I think both camps are wrong, but I'm definitely more in the game is too hard camp. And I think you can fix that pretty easily by just instead saying the game is too hard for me. It's too hard for me, I don't find it enjoyable, and that's okay. On the other side, I wish people could just say, the game is way harder. I like that. That's good for me. And then everybody would be fine. If we could just do that. But for some reason we can't. And so let's kind of break down. I'm on the side that it's a little too hard for me. Let's just kind of break that side down and where I think people are going too far with it. So I don't think Team Cherry screwed up. I don't think they made a mistake making Silksong and making Silksong too hard because they spent 7 years on it. And it seems like they spent 7 years on it, according to interviews, just because they were having a great time making the game. I love the way that Team Cherry operates. There are 3 people who are like permanently on the team, and then obviously they hire a bunch of other people. But the reason Silksong took so long is because Hollow Knight was a massive success. They didn't need to publish. They didn't need to get the game out. I remember hearing people say like, oh yeah, Team Cherry is just coasting off that Patreon money. But if you look up Team Cherry Patreon, you just get sent to an FAQ part of their website where they say, we don't have a Patreon or a Kickstarter. We made plenty of money on the game. If you want to give us more money, buy a copy of Hollow Knight for your friends. And that is supremely based. It's supremely based. I love Team Cherry even though I don't enjoy Silksong. And since the game is selling for $20, I feel like, you know, they kind of get to make whatever they want. They also get to make whatever they want because it's their game. And if they want to make a very punishing platformer, and that is their true developer artistic intent, I think that's okay. I just also think that it is not for me. So I don't think Team Cherry is obligated to introduce an easy mode that is easier for people to get through. I don't think they are obligated to patch out the things in the game that are making it harder, which we'll talk about later. I don't think they're obligated to do any of that. I do kind of think they might just do it. They might make an easy mode for people to play through the game eventually, just because this is a dev team that kind of loves giving a lot of value to their players. All of the DLC for Hollow Knight was free, and they just kept adding more stuff. They kept patching it, and sometimes they patched things out of it that speedrunners didn't like or that I didn't like because I was doing my pacifist run. But, you know, they're actively engaged with the community, so I don't think there's a 0% chance that Team Cherry sees all of the feedback and sees people being like, I had to quit the game because it was too hard, and they don't implement an easy mode. I also don't think they're obligated to, and I don't necessarily know that they will. I'm just saying I wouldn't put it past them. I think it's something they could do. And if they did do that, that'd be great. Boy, that Silksong sure is hard. Kind of wish I had like a training grounds area to learn the mechanics. Oh, that reminds me, this video is sponsored by boot.dev. Boot.dev is the best place you can learn coding online. Whether you're trying to learn Python, SQL, or Go, boot.dev has courses ready for you, and they make it like a fun video game. These gamified lessons keep you engaged, and there's even online leaderboards. There's a Discord community you can join. It's basically like a game, except you're learning a very valuable skill. According to Stack Overflow, the median salary last year for a back-end web developer was over $150,000 a year. Boy, I wish Hornet could do some back-end web development, then I might be able to afford some of those benches, am I right? I am. They have free demos for every interactive course and a new training grounds mode. That's what I mentioned at the beginning of this segment. That's a place where you can grind infinite challenges to make sure you really lock in on a skill you need to learn. It's a great place to learn. So try out some of those free demos, then when you're ready to commit, click the link in the description and enter offer code TULOK at checkout for 25% off your subscription. Again, link in the description, offer code is TULOK, and you'll get 25% off your subscription. Now, let's get back into that sweet, sweet Silksong discourse. I think another reason that I am feeling like the game is too hard, and a lot of other people are feeling like the game is too hard, is that I was not a day one Hollow Knight player. I did not play Hollow Knight as soon as it came out. I probably played it 2 or 3 years after it came out when everything was online. And if I didn't know where to go, or I didn't know where to get an upgrade, or I was struggling too much with a boss, I could look up what's going on here. You know, how do I get more damage on my nail? How do I find things to make my spells better? Is there a shortcut to get to the boss so I don't have to do as hard of a run back? And none of those things are up for Silksong right now. I mean, I still don't really know how many of the bosses I've beaten, because at the time of recording this, whenever I look up the Silksong bosses, because I just want to know, like, am I close? Am I close to beating most of the bosses? Am I making progress in a meaningful way? Will I be able to get a video out? The sites that I'm looking at have the boss I beat most recently as the last boss. They're like, this is how far we got. And I'm like, oh, that's how far I got too. Shoot, you know? And maybe coming back, if I come back to it in a couple months, when everything's updated and all the secrets have been found, and people have found ways to upgrade Hornet earlier in the game, I think I could enjoy it more. I don't think there's anything wrong with needing a guide and not liking to explore Painland, but I think a lot of people might have played Hollow Knight after everything was discovered, and so they could just look things up and figure out, hey, where do I need to go? So they don't get lost, and they don't get scared, and they don't get hurt. Basically, the game isn't even hard. Except that, yes, it is. Yeah, this is where the other camp is really annoying to me. Probably more annoying to me because I am in Camp 1 of Weenie Hut Juniors. But the gaslighting of people pretending that Silksong is not harder than Hollow Knight is bananas. Because what do you mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
The thing I see a lot is people saying, well, Hornet is just a more agile character than the Knight, so you're meant to just nimbly move throughout the game, which would be true if it was true, but it isn't, so it's not. Hornet isn't more nimble than the Knight was. Are you talking about after you get the dash upgrade, how you can sprint? Is that the nimble? I'm through Act 1. I got the sprint. I got the float. I got the mantis claw style thing. She ain't that much more nimble. Certainly not nimble enough to justify everything doing twice as much damage. This is an exaggeration. Not everything does twice as much damage, but most things do. Even basic enemies that seem like small widow guys will have like chain attacks that do 2 hits worth of damage. Thankfully, I haven't seen anyone try and gaslight me into thinking that like chain attacks that do 2 hits because they hit you once for 1 mask and then right after combo into a second one. I've seen no one try and say that that doesn't count as a 2 mask hit. Thank God, because I would lose my mind. But I'm glad that everyone's at least agreeing that that counts as 2 hits. Saying that Hornet is a gymnast and that's why the game isn't harder than Hollow Knight, that's mental gymnastics. You're doing backflips in your mind, because my counterpoint is 2 bigger number than 1. It is. That makes the game harder, and saying that doesn't make the game harder, you're just a liar. That's just not true. 2 being bigger than 1 isn't even necessarily the only thing that makes this game harder. Basic enemies take so many more hits to kill. Bosses take so many more hits to kill. Even flying enemies, which are agile and thus should have less health, right? They take 7 hits. They take 7 to 8 hits. Whereas flying enemies, the little, bat bugs or whatever in Hollow Knight took 2 to 3 hits. 7 is bigger than 3. It's twice as big. And I'm not saying 7 as like an exaggeration. I tested it on the little drill bugs. I counted 1, I counted 2, I counted 3, I counted 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm using the Reaper Crest, which apparently does more damage, or maybe it doesn't do more damage and it's just slower for no reason. I know that it also gives you like soul balls. We can talk about soul balls later. But I'm using Reaper Crest, which is also important because I see Reaper Crest as a catch-all defense of more difficult platforming. Hornet does not have the same pogo that the Knight does. She has a dive kick, and the dive kick goes at a 45-degree angle. 45 degrees is harder to visualize with your eyes than down, because down for pogo, you just have to say the enemy is below me. I'll hit it when it's below me. And 45 degrees, you got to kind of math that out. And yes, you can get the Reaper Crest pretty early, but not like super early. Like you have to beat a couple bosses to get to the Reaper Crest. It's not like the game starts off and says, do you want the Reaper Crest so that you can do a regular pogo? No, like you got to use that dive kick for a little bit. And if you can't adjust to the dive kick because it is harder to use, that's going to be another thing that adds to the difficulty of the game. There's so many things that add up to the difficulty of the game. I think the biggest ones are just how much health the enemies have and how much damage the enemies do, but there's more. Kind of everything in this game seems like it was made to be harder. If you want to heal, you need to have a full bar of silk instead of just having a third of the bar of soul you had in Hollow Knight. Now it does heal you for 3. It heals you for 3 all at once, and you can do it mid-air. But mid-air doesn't matter because all of the enemies can jump or fly or throw things at you. So mid-air isn't that much safer than just being on the ground and spacing things out. It just isn't. And having that benefit that you can do it in midair doesn't help you more than being able to use a third of your bar to heal 1 mask up at a time. Like, that's just harder. 2 masks of damage also means that when you do finally find 4 mask upgrades, which I still haven't at the end of Act 1, you're still dying in 3 hits. You go from 5 to 6, and with 5 life, you die in 3 hits, and with 6 life, you die in 3 hits. It doesn't get better, and getting those masks requires you to do either a big platforming challenge or an enemy gauntlet. You have to work hard to earn that reward, and boy, the rewards in Silksong are not plentiful. They just aren't. In base Hollow Knight, when you beat the Gruzmother, she explodes into a bunch of money. When you beat the False Knight, he doesn't explode into a bunch of money, but there is a chest that is so obvious to see that you can get after False Knight that explodes into a bunch of money. Then you meet the Shaman, you get Vengeful Spirit, so you actually get a power-up right after False Knight, and then after you get that power-up, you get locked away. You gotta fight a Pillbug. You kill the Pillbug, he explodes into a lot of coins, so every time you beat something in Hollow Knight, you get something. Sometimes it sucks, and sometimes it's something that you don't necessarily like. I know Fluke Nest is great for speedrunners, and the community has figured out how to make Fluke Nest a really busted charm, but yeah, beating Fluke Marm and just getting Fluke Nest, maybe not the best. But you will beat major enemies in Silksong, like major bosses, and get nothing. Which means that if you want to have money, you need to fight basic enemies, which do more damage than Hollow Knight, and take more hits to kill. The game is harder, and it's kind of harder in a way that, in my opinion, is not very fun and is more frustration than challenge. It is challenge, but that challenge isn't fun. It's just kind of frustrating a lot of the time. Something I hadn't talked about when I talked about double damage is how pits will do double damage now, like pits with like bugs scurrying in them, or pits with spikes in them, or pits with buzzsaws in them will do double damage now. Even on Path of Pain in Hollow Knight, the buzzsaws only do 1 mask worth of damage, but in Silksong, before you're done with Act 1, you're running into areas where the pits do double damage. And there are more pits now. There are more pits in Silksong than there are in Hollow Knight, which becomes another problem when you kill enemies and the money they drop, because that's the only place you can get money, the money drops in the pits. Now in Hollow Knight 1, if your money dropped on top of spikes, and you had the Gathering Swarm charm, little bugs will go pick up your money for you. There is an equivalent charm in Silksong. If your money drops into pits, into Silksong, the equivalent charm does not get that money out for you, which means that it is essentially just a convenience charm. It is just there so you don't have to walk as far to pick up the money that didn't drop into pits. So you're sort of stuck in this place where you need to kill basic enemies to get money. It's harder to kill basic enemies because they hit harder, because they have more health. And a lot of times when you kill those basic enemies, your money falls into a toilet, which isn't even the end of the economy problem. Because another economy problem is, and this is the only time I am going to bring up something that I would actually say I would dock points from Silksong for. I would actually dock points from Silksong and say, you know what, this is bad, and I think it's bad in an objective way and not a subjective way, but there is a poison that inflicts your mind when you start making video games, and it is the poison of Charles Entertainment cheese. When you go to Chuck E. Cheese, there are 3 different kinds of currency, and this is to make all of your money and to steal all of your money. If you want food and beverages, you pay for that with US American dollars. Good old US of A. Then, if you want to play games, you have to get tokens with your real money. You convert your real money into tokens. You cannot just put $1 into the machine at Chuck E. Cheese. You need to get Chuck E. Cheese tokens, which also means that maybe you have 5 or 6 Chuck E. Cheese tokens left over that you couldn't find a place for in the machine. That means you got to come back to Chuck E. Cheese. Then, when you have tokens, you are divided into 2 camps of different games that are fun, and games that give you the 3rd kind of currency, tickets. Tickets can be used to get things behind the counter at Chuck E. Cheese. You can get prizes like little finger traps or a jumpy half circle thing. They got a PS5 back there, but no one's getting that. No one's getting that. Come on. That's not real. And all of this isn't very fun. It's annoying and it's frustrating. If you just, wanted to spend $1 to get one of the paper finger traps so you could show your kid brother the finger traps and be like, look, it's the finger traps. That's how that works. That's the entire novelty of a finger trap. It's not a fun thing. They're not great. But this poison inflicts the brain of every game developer. I swear to God, I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but every game developer seems to think our game needs more than one form of currency, and Silksong has 2 kinds of currency, and that sucks, and I hate it. And I think it's objectively bad. The rest of the stuff is subjective. We'll talk about it more later, why it's subjective, and it's fine that I don't love Silksong, but this is something that I am going to say is objectively bad, and I don't like it, because some of the enemies don't even drop the kind of money that's useful. And maybe you think both kinds of money are useful. I'll talk about that in a second, but no, the kind of money that is useful is rosaries. And some of the enemies don't even drop rosaries, which means that you not only have to find the enemies that hit harder, that take more hits, that might drop their money into a pit, you need to make sure it's the right kind of enemy that's going to drop you actual usable money and not the bone currency. The bones are their money. So are the worms.
The worms are their money. The bones are their dollars.
You remember? I was joking, but no, you know what? That I think you should leave sketch perfectly illustrates why this is such a silly concept. Because Tim Robinson can't decide whether the bones are the skeleton's money or the worms are the skeleton's money. And it's funny because you watch it and you listen to it and you're like, ha ha ha, he goofed up and he added too much currency to this fake world he's creating. Well, then why does every game developer do it? Why are they doing it? Why? Sometimes you'll find a room that is so full of bone currency when you don't need bone currency. And if all of the currency was just one currency, that wouldn't be a problem. But it is a problem because there's 2 kinds of currency. If you could exchange your currency, one type of currency for the other, maybe that would be a little better. It would still be annoying, but maybe it would be a little better. I'm actually fine with the rosary chain system where you can spend 80 rosaries to get like a 60 rosary keychain that keeps your rosaries safe in your inventory. That I am fine with. I don't like that there is bone dollars and there is rosary dollars. It infuriates me and it makes me so mad. So now, I guess, let's talk about the different currencies. Bone currency we're going to talk about first, because the Get Good camp is very insistent that the reason you hate Silksong is because you're not using tools. Hey, I get it. I've got to have my tools. But if you're using the tools, you're using bone dollars. How the tools work, if you haven't played or haven't understood the concept yet, is that you'll get tools like knives and different kind of knives that you can throw, and they hit bosses that are far away. It's a ranged attack option, basically, that doesn't use your silk, doesn't use your magic meter. And that's really helpful. You have about 12 of each or 8 of each, depending on what kind of tool you're using. And then when you rest at a bench, your bone dollars disappear as they are spent to replenish your knives and your daggers. So if the reason someone is not having fun playing Silksong is that they are not using enough of their tools, I disagree, because you shouldn't use your tools, which are a consumable resource and do use a type of currency in the game, to hit the basic enemies. You should save them for bosses. And I don't see a lot of people actually complaining that much about the bosses. I certainly would not complain about the bosses. A little bit maybe that they do 2 damage per hit, and actually another thing we'll talk about later, but the boss fights have been fun. I've enjoyed the boss fights. I don't dread walking into a room and seeing a boss fight. The dread I feel is when I walk into a room and I don't see a boss fight, because I know I have to run through more of this world that feels like it hates me and wants me to not have a good time. So, I don't think a lack of tool usage is impeding the fun of the gamers. It's a pretty obvious thing, just save your tools for phase 2 of the bosses you're fighting. That's the hard fights. That's the place to spend your consumables. But then you run out if the boss is hard, which the boss should be hard. I'm having fun with a hard boss, but I ran out of bone dollars. And now I don't have any tools. And apparently, the reason I'm not enjoying the game is because I'm not using my tools, but now I don't have any tools to use. Ruh-roh, that stinks. That's the bone dollars, and I don't like how the bone dollars work. I also don't like how the rosaries work, mostly because not enough enemies drop them. In Hollow Knight, in base Hollow Knight, if you got locked into a mob room, you go into a room, there's a mob of enemies, the door is shut, you got to beat all the enemies to get out. When you killed enemies in those rooms, they dropped money. You'd beat the enemy, it would drop money, and even if you died, you'd come back, you could bash your shade up, and you could get a little extra money. So if you were stuck on a mob fight for a while, because it was hard, because Hollow Knight is also a hard game, you'd walk away still with a lot of money, and you could then use that to go buy something that maybe helps you out a little bit. Buy a new charm, buy a mask shard from Sly, buy a magic upgrade from Sly, something like that. You could do that. In Silksong, in Silksong, mob rooms that lock you in, the enemies don't drop money, which feels so mean. Like, not only are you stuck at this wall, but you are not making any progress as you're at the wall. At least in Hollow Knight, if you got stuck on that, you would at least be making some progress, because you'd be getting some money that you could use to buy a map, you could use to buy a bench. Benches were more expensive in Hollow Knight. They cost like 120 to unlock a lot of times. However, now we're going to talk about why rosaries are important. You didn't have to buy every bench in Hollow Knight. You only had to buy a couple of them. Probably about half. I think even half is too much. I think it's like 30% of the benches were benches that you bought and paid for. The rest of the benches were just sort of there. They'd be like, well, boss is coming up. We better give you a bench. So the run back's not terrible. And in Silksong, all of the benches cost money. And they all cost money, and you don't get money from bosses. And all of the basic enemies that you're farming, not all of them have the money you need. The money falls into pits. Even if you have the charm that grabs your money out of pits, you fight the mobs in the mob rooms that lock you in, you don't get money. You just don't get the money. And because the game is also harder, you're more likely to not get back to your money when you die. Again, Hollow Knight, you die, you go back, you hit your shade, and you do have to fight your shade. Fighting your shade is harder than hitting your silk cocoon in Silksong. But getting to the shade is substantially easier because the game is easier, because Hollow Knight is not as hard as Silksong. When you would lose money in Hollow Knight, I would lose $1,000 sometimes. I'd lose $3,000 sometimes. And I'd think, oh, that's stinks. That stinks. But I'd move on because I knew, hey, there's more money other places, you know? It's no big deal. I'll find money other places. This isn't the end of the world. Hey, I had $3,000 that I hadn't spent. Obviously, there will be more money. In Silksong, it doesn't feel like there will be more money. Money takes more time to get because the enemies take more hits. You're more likely to die trying to farm enemies because they hit you harder. The traps on the way to those enemies are more likely to kill you. And getting back to your money is harder and you're more likely to die. So you're more likely to lose all of your money. It incentivizes you to spend your money as soon as you can. Anyone comes up to you, if Chakra comes up to you and says, do you want a map? You buy the map. Are maps helpful? Fudge no. No, the maps aren't helpful. Absolutely not. The maps are not helpful. The maps have never been helpful because they are all so zoomed out and you gotta like squint and be like, what is that? What is that? And maybe if you bought all of the upgrades you could get to the map from Chakra, the maps would be really helpful. But you can't do that because you don't have the money. Buying things like a simple key for 500 rosaries is such an investment. And when I did it and I used the simple key to unlock Wormland, I felt sick. I felt bad because Wormland sucks. Wormland is a miserable place to be, and I felt like I wasted $500 for this when the money is so scarce. I got so desperate for money that when I found the gambling beetle, I had $20. And I didn't have the most recent bench because I only had $20 and the benches cost $80. And I said, okay, we're going to gamble. I'm going to go throw $4 down, and I'll throw $4 down over and over again, and I will either run out of money or I will get enough money for that bench. And I ran out of money. That's what happened. I didn't have enough money for that bench. And then there are bench traps. And I'm not even talking about the bench that is literally a trap that's in the middle of the Hunter's March, which is already such a frustratingly death-prone area. Like, you're just going to take so much damage because all of the enemies are so aggressive and all of the spikes are everywhere. And you have to perfect pogo all the time off the pogo pumpkins or you're going to fall in the spikes while 5 ants are chasing you unless you killed the ants so that their money could drop into the spikes that all of the pogo pumpkins are on. I'm not even talking about that bench. I'm talking about benches where the only difference between a bench you've rested at previously and this next bench is like 1 pit of spikes. Like, you can run from one bench, get to where the next bench should be, and the only obstacle in there is a pit of spikes. But because the game has conditioned you to spend your money as fast as you can, you might think, well, I better get this bench. I thankfully didn't fall into that trap, but that was definitely a bench that was there. So not all benches are created equal, but all of them cost equal, and all of them cost $80. And then also you have to unlock the fast travel bug next to it. The fast travel bug next to it is an additional cost to the bench. You don't get both with the money you spend. That is harder to get, which is why I was not having fun with the game, because I'm going to go into my bona fides now, and I don't really love that people go into their bona fides, but there's this weird thing where people need to go into their bona fides to say, I'm not a baby gamer, I'm a tough guy, I'm a tough, strong guy, and I would never be a baby gamer who would quit a game because it was too hard. But like, I've professionally played Elden Ring for like 3 years. I've done runs without spirit ashes, runs without armor, runs with terrible spells, runs with terrible weapons. I've done it all. I beat Consort Radahn at New Game Plus 7 the first time I went through the DLC. I went through the DLC in New Game Plus 7. That was how I first went through Shadow of the Erdtree. And I got through Shadow of the Erdtree, and I had fun with it, and I really liked it. And I didn't start disliking it until it became Tedium. And yeah, Tedium is really the killer, is when things are hard, but boring. And that's kind of where I landed on a lot of the stuff and a lot of the mechanics in Silksong. Getting the money is hard, and it isn't fun. It's not fun to run up and try and fight the Shield Knight who takes 15 hits to kill and has a shield in front of him so you can get $19 and then run back to the bench so that you can come back and fight him again for $19 more. It feels bad. Talking about Worm Area, going through Worm Area, there are sections where I'm pretty sure you just have to damage boost through the falling worms that do 2 masks worth of damage, hide in a notch, and hit the worms until you have enough silk to heal up so that you can damage boost through the worms again. And that's not fun. It's hard. It's also not fun. I didn't enjoy it. And if I'm not enjoying something and you do enjoy it, that's okay. I think Silksong is a great game. I just think it's a great game that isn't for me because I think Silksong is just a game for masochists. It's for people who really kind of have fun with the suffering. I don't have fun with the suffering, even though I am a Elden Ring content creator for the most part, which is a game that's really hard. Except I think Silksong's difficulty does not remind me of Elden Ring, and it doesn't even remind me of Hollow Knight. It reminds me of Demon's Souls. Demon's Souls was FromSoft's first Souls game. It was the first we're gonna make the hard game for you. It's gonna be real hard. As FromSoft has moved from Demon's Souls to Elden Ring, they have gotten so much more generous with where they place your bonfires, your graces, your resting points, whatever you want to call it. They do such a better job of putting those places in front of the bosses, because the difficulty of Elden Ring is Melania, Blade of Mikola. It is not the Halig Tree. Now the Halig Tree, the first time you go through it, it's pretty stressful. There's branches you can fall off of. There's bubble guys shooting at you. Once you get the download on it, it ain't all that bad. By the way, I understand once you get the download on Silksong, it might not be that bad, but I got through the Halig Tree. I didn't get through Silksong, so I think it is different. But the difficulty in Demon's Souls is getting to the boss. And so all of the bosses are a lot easier because they expect you to go through an area that is going to beat the hell out of you. Rolling skeletons on the cliff sides is one of the worst experiences I've ever had in a video game. It sucks. The run down to that old ancient hero fight is so miserable and not fun. It's challenging, I guess, but it isn't challenging in a fun way. It's challenging in a way where you need to swing at enemies with your right hand and there's a wall next to you that stops you from doing it while they gank you. It's not fun, and that's how I felt about Silksong. Once I got to the bosses and I found shortcuts to get to the bosses, I was having a good time. I floundered against the last judge for probably an hour and a half. Floundered against Morwing. I didn't really like Morwing. I think Morwing kind of sucks. But I liked a lot of the other bosses I fought. I liked the last judge. I liked Widow. I think even though they do 2 hits worth of damage, and I don't totally think every boss needs to do 2 hits worth of damage with all of their attacks, they're fun fights. It's fun to learn the patterns. It's fun to overcome the big challenge and beat the enemy that seems like it should beat you every time. It's not fun running through a haunted house that kicks you in the dick and balls over and over again. And that's what the rest of the areas feel like. Which also stinks because they're really pretty and the music is really pretty and the characters are really great in Silksong. I love that Hornet has a voice. The Knight, they didn't have a voice and they're just sort of the person you're playing as that jumps. And that's fine. A lot of games have that. I'm not criticizing Hollow Knight for that, but I do prefer something like Silksong, where your character has a personality and they talk to people, and all the people they talk to seem really neat, and the boss designs are really cool, and the movement feels good. The movement does feel good. It just doesn't feel good as you're running through an area that hates you. That's kind of how I feel. I just feel like when I play Silksong that the game hates me and doesn't want me to have fun, and I wasn't having fun. And maybe you were having fun, and that's great. And I think the reason that people are so divided, and the reason that people are saying, oh, Team Cherry made the game wrong by making it too hard, or people are saying you are wrong and a bad person for not having fun with the game, is because we as a society have this need now, and maybe we've always had it, and I've just noticed it lately. We have to morally justify every opinion. We cannot simply just say, I don't like that thing. For example, I hate the Monolith. The Monolith is what I call the Coca-Cola freestyle machines that you'll see at fast food joints and movie theaters, where all of the flavors come out of one nozzle, and they have crazy flavors like orange Coca-Cola, cherry orange Coca-Cola, cherry orange vanilla Coca-Cola, and I hate it. And always makes The soda tastes flat and shitty, but also somehow sweeter, probably because the syrup of the last soda is stuck to the nozzle. I don't have a moral reason to dislike it, I just do. But one of my friends mentioned that their wife has allergies to certain things that are in certain sodas. And so they were like, so we can't drink out of those. And I was like, yes, the monolith is now problematic, and I can dislike it for a moral reason. But that's not true. I don't dislike it for a moral reason. I just dislike it. I've seen multiple video essays pop up on my feed talking about how they hate YouTube food man Binging with Babish now, because Binging with Babish stopped cooking and now reviews chips and candy, and I hate that Babish does that. And like, these essays try to make some sort of moral position to like why they don't like it, and I'm like, no guys, it's okay, you just don't like it. I still like it. I think Babish is a fun guy. I like watching him talk about candy and stuff. He still does cook. People say he doesn't cook anymore, but he definitely still cooks in his videos. And I liked his other videos, and I get that, like, it's hard to constantly come up with new ideas and not change things. And, you know, like, so I'm good with it. But also, if you don't like the new Babish, that's fine. If you like the Coca-Cola Freestyle Machine because you like the orange cherry vanilla Coke, that's fine. I don't think you're a bad person. We can disagree about how much we enjoy things without it being a personal vendetta, without it being a moral failing. And the idea that you just simply need to get good to enjoy Silksong, that you have failed the game and not that the game has failed you, is silly. And the idea that, like, you waited 7 years to play Silksong and it was too hard for you, so Team Cherry is mean, is silly. There's no moral weight to it. You just don't like it, or you do like it. So I wish that the sides in this argument were, it's too hard and I don't like it, or it's too hard and I do like that. Because all of this other moral weight that's being added of get good, you failed the game, or the game failed me after I waited so long for it, neither of those are true. You know, it's a $20 game. It's a bug game. It's a good game. It's just not a good game for everyone. And maybe I'll come back to it, you know? Maybe I'll come back to it when I don't have the pressure to get a video out for it, because, oh my God, I have to get a video out for it. That's a whole other element that no one else has to deal with. But like, I have to get a video out for it. So maybe I'll come back to it and I'll really like it then. And maybe they'll add an easy mode that I'll enjoy. Or maybe I'll just find some guides that help me find ways to make the stuff easier. But in the meantime, I didn't love my time playing Silksong. That's okay. I'm a little bit stressed about it because I was kind of counting on playing a hot new game. And now I don't think I will play that hot new game. And I've got to find something else to do. So hopefully people like Night Rain hard mode. Otherwise, that's going to be bad. But how are you doing? Do you like Silksong? Do you think it's too hard and you don't like it? Or do you think it's too hard and you do like it? Let me know in the comments. I hope that people's takeaway from this video is civil and we don't need to morally attack each other. That's really all I wanted to say. And then I said it for a long time because your boy yaps. So, hey, check out the Patreon if you want to support the channel, and if you want to play Magic the Gathering with us, you know, play some Night Rain with us. We got a big old Discord community that you can hop in after you join the Patreon. Check out Tulok the Barbarian if you like Dungeons and Dragons. Check out Tulok the Cardbarian if you like Magic the Gathering. I did a little theory crafting video of the Knight, everyone's favorite, the Knight from Hollow Knight, as a Magic the Gathering card. I'm not selling proxies or anything. I don't own it, so don't ask me that I do. And I hope you enjoy Silksong. I really hope you do.